worth noting I've never done this before. So this is the roof I'm going to build. I think it's called a mansard roof, which is usually 4 pitch sides and a flat section, or like sometimes there's 2 pitches on each side. So the top will be slightly sloped with a rubber roof and like EPDM, and then tiles around the side. So this is what I'm planning with the rafters. So I sent this off to the structural engineer, so he's got an idea of what I'm building, the design is, and he designed these 2 crank steel beams. So he'll spec out the exact thickness and size and spec of the steel that's needed to support what I'm putting on the roof. So I need to figure out the exact dimensions, and then I send those dimensions on a diagram off to the steel building company. But because I've never done this before and I don't want to get it wrong, what I'm going to do first is build a template of the steel beams and just sit them into place. So the cranked beams I've got to sit inside pockets in the existing building. So the first thing to do is cut out these pocket holes of the existing building. So I've cut the pocket into the wall there. It's about 250mm wide, roughly 300 high, 125 deep. Plenty of space to wiggle room for the steel to go in. Cutting out this second pocket, it's a bit more of a pain in the ass. This bit was built probably in the late 70s, and it's a cavity wall, this section. And the bricks and the mortar are a lot harder than the soft bricks from the other side. So just chipping away at it. So the steel's going there, pushing down on there. There's a lintel already in here. Just going to fill in this brick because it was a bit ropey. Just transfer the loads down to the ground. So I've got 2 pockets in the wall, one on the left and one on the right, ready to accept the steels. So even though I had the structural engineer designing the crank steel beam, there was no accurate drawings of it, and the steel company required me to give them exact measurements, and I didn't want to get it wrong. So what I did was I built the crank steel beam in wood first, just as a template, just to test my measurements were correct, and then I'm going to send those measurements to the steel company to manufacture my 2 steel beams. So this SketchUp file is all the dimensions of the crank steel beam, which I send over to the steel company. If you're wondering, these things are about 120 kilos, so not totally unmanageable, but just a bit awkward. And that is my kind neighbour who offered to help me shift these across. Joiner bolts. You don't need a nut on that side, it digs into the wood. One half in.
So firstly, this beam, that lifter doesn't go low enough to get the beam onto the plate. So I've got to use these straps to prop up the beam a certain height and then get the beam lifter underneath the beam. So the second problem is that hole that it's got to go into is 3.3 meters high. So the beam lifter only goes 3 meters high. So after I've got it all set up, I need to prop up the lifter on some blocks to get me that extra 300 mil. So I'm going to put it on time lapse and see how it goes. Try not to kill myself. This bit actually took ages. I think I must have spent 3 hours messing about trying to get this up, lifting it onto blocks, moving the blocks, winding it up a bit more. And when you wind that thing up, it's really slow to wind. So it was just a little bit at a time, making sure I was safe all the time. 3.5 hours it took to put that one up. It was so awkward. Did it single-handedly, and it is perfectly level on top. So if you're wondering about this sketchy platform I made, propped up on blocks, there's another stack of 3 blocks in the middle. If I have to shift it, I make sure the wheels are over the blocks. Put some timber around the edges so it doesn't accidentally wheel off the edge. So this side didn't take quite as long because I knew what I was doing from doing the first one. So both beams are up now, so the next thing is getting that roof covering put on.